Good morning. On this day, Wednesday, July 11th, 2012, at 10:30 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Administration of the Board of Commissioners of the Chicago Park District is being held in the eighth floor boardroom of the Administration Building, located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair Vice President Armstrong.
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Lavelle.
Here.
President Trobert.
Here.
Commissioner Hamlin.
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke. Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Salgado, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1, from the Director of Human Resources, adoption of Department of Human Resources Policy and Procedure Manual.
Good morning, President Trobert, Commissioners, General Superintendent CO Mike Kelly. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners adopt the Chicago Park District Department of Human Resource Policy and Procedure Manual. As the Director of Human Resource, I recommend approval of the Chicago Park District Department of Human Resource Policy and Procedure Manual. The goal of the manual is to serve as a reference source for managers and supervisors to address specific policies and procedures. It will also serve as a reference source for all employees to be made aware of specific policies and procedures. This policy and procedure manual is not intended, either directly or indirectly, to be construed as an employee contract. And there are cases where provision of a collective bargaining agreement will supersede articles in the manual. The Personnel Board met and unanimously approved adopting this manual.
Mike Simpkins for the record.
For the record, yes, Mike. I am Mike Simpkins, Director of Human Resource.
So, Mike, I know we must have a policy and procedures manual. So, could you just this is an extensive review to update it?
Yes, it's an extensive review to update it, and it's also policies and procedures that have already been in place. They were just in separate places to find. We combine all the policies and procedures to put in one manual to make it easy and accessible for Park District employees to review the material.
And as part of this, is there a communications piece of this to roll this out to the various managers?
Yes, it is. We will start with the executive committee, the board, to inform the directors and chiefs at those levels. We will then roll it out to the various trades, landscape, regions, do info sessions. There will be a signature form for acknowledgement of receipt and understanding of the policy and procedure manual that will be placed in each employee personnel file. We will also post it on the Chicago Park District website. We will post it on the Park Supervisors FAQs in the Park Supervisors FAQ folder. And it will also be a part of the, as you know, the Park District is going for certification for DPRAC and CAPRA. Will also be part of documents submitted to both of those.
And I'm sorry, tell us what DCAPRA and CAPRA is?
DPRAC, it's the state of Illinois certification and federal certification for park and recreation departments.
Michael, could you speak to how this will rectify one of the little problems that we had earlier with respect to some of the people already on the workforce who may not have been adequately screened before they came aboard?
Well, in this policy and procedure manual, one of the policies it speaks of drug and fingerprint background check. We have, within the last year or so, started doing running current Chicago Park District and future employees' social security numbers against the Illinois State Sex Registry. As we find that employees are either in violation of those things, have a sex offense, we will bring them in and follow their collective bargaining agreements to do disciplinary action, take disciplinary action.
Move to approve?
Second.
Will the Secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Yes, sir. Chair Vice President Armstrong.
Aye.
Vice Chair Commissioner Lavelle.
Aye.
President Trobert.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamlin.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you.
Item number 2, from the Director of Risk Management, resolution adopting a risk management safety manual.
Good morning, President, Superintendent, Board of Commissioners. For the record, Andre Taylor, Director of Risk Management for the Chicago Park District. Come to you this morning recommending the Board of Commissioners and President, Superintendent adopt the Risk Management Safety Manual and Guidelines. It's let me reiterate, it is already in existence. It's been around for a while. But there were some changes that needed to be made. And a couple of the major changes is that there's a superintendent statement, of course, from Mike Kelly. Mercy Works location has changed. There's a new crisis response chart and the risk management notification chart. So this is nothing new. It's just being updated a little bit more, and it'll probably be continue to update it. The other piece that is probably going to be updated is just the workers' comp manual. Workers' comp, bloodborne pathogen, and communicable diseases. Just to reiterate, it's a manual that tells you how to fill out forms, assignment and responsibilities of park staff, what to do when an employee or a patron is injured, and like I said, again, what locations an injured employee can go to. So this is in existence. The staff has it. We'll reiterate it in info sessions. We've gone over it, and it's already distributed throughout the parks.
When was the last time it was updated?
Just recently.
I mean, prior to that.
I would have to say it was not until last year. In order to update it, there's so many things that are constantly changing, and we get it out to all the staff. And we're talking over 200, maybe 500 manuals that go out. So some things can be updated via email, but others, this is the basics.
Mm-hmm. So you have a regular schedule for updating this then from this point forward?
Yes, I do.
I move adoption if there are no questions.
Second.
If no objection, we will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 3, from the Disability and Policy Officer, authorization to participate in the City of Chicago contract number 17532, purchase of Stryker evacuation chairs.
Perfect timing.
Good morning, President Traubert, Vice President Armstrong, Commissioners, Superintendent, and General Counsel. I'm Larry Labiak, the Disability Policy Officer, and I'm here to present a recommendation for purchase of Stryker evacuation chairs. The recommendation reads as follows. Pursuant to the joint purchasing agreement between the Chicago Park District and the City of Chicago, the Director of Purchasing recommends that the General Superintendent and CEO or his designee approve this request for Stryker evacuation chairs from City Contract 17532 with Chicago United Inc. Limited for an amount not to exceed $200,000. The amount of services provided each year will depend upon requirements and shall not exceed budget appropriations for operations and capital expenses for the applicable year. We request to use the current contract through any and all extensions authorized by the City of Chicago. I'll definitely read the explanation, but I just want to say a few words in a matter-of-fact way. Based on my years of experience in municipal government with the city and now with the Park District for the past 7 years, it has always been a concern of mine that we are able to safely, in the case of emergencies, evacuate people with mobility limitations or similar physical disabilities, or those who may be ambulatory but in an emergency situation might be somehow cognitively impaired to the extent that they are not able to evacuate through the regular processes for people without disabilities. These evacuation chairs would be placed in 50 of our buildings, all of which have multiple levels, 14 of which are current special recreation sites. It may cross your mind in surprise a bit that we have special recreation sites that have multiple levels. Well, in the good old days before the ADA was passed, we provided special recreation services, most specifically for Special Olympics and people with cognitive disabilities who didn't necessarily have physical disabilities. So it wasn't quite as much an issue. Since the ADA has passed, you ladies and gentlemen know that the city and the Park District have both taken large measures to make our facilities and buildings more physically accessible to people with disabilities. And this is really the next logical follow-up step to make sure that we develop a comprehensive evacuation plan for people with disabilities, and that we train staff in how to use these evacuation chairs to move individuals with disabilities from upper levels to the ground floor level, or in a few buildings, the most logical close exit, and thus promoting a higher level of safety for them while we wait for emergency services, the fire department, EMS, whomever to respond. I would be happy to read the explanation if I may. The Chicago Park District offers programming in multiple level field houses throughout the city. In its ongoing commitment to ensure that every person can participate in programs and events, the Park District has completed major capital improvements to improve accessibility at over 120 parks to date. Since 2007, spending on accessibility projects has totaled nearly $32 million. These improvements have included the installation of elevators and/or lifts to facilitate physical access to Park District programs, regardless of where they are located in a field house. The purchase of evacuation chairs is, as I mentioned a moment ago, an appropriate next step measure to ensuring that our patrons can safely exit buildings in the event of an emergency or service interruption. An evacuation chair is a device that offers such assurance for fire safety and life safety. The Stryker evacuation chair allows a single adult to assist a person with a mobility limitation down one or more flights of stairs for emergency evacuation of a multi-story building. Questions?
Is 50 chairs enough to suffice to cover the need that we have, or is there a larger need?
At this point, we have identified 51 buildings that would qualify for an evacuation chair. There are probably a handful or so more that we would look at, Commissioner Hanlon, for future installation. We have a couple of locations where we're planning elevators, or a couple of locations that maybe have an elevator but have very little physical presence of the public at this point in time. But the amount does have a little bit of wiggle room for purchase of additional chairs over the 50 and keeping it under this $200,000 recommended allocation.
Larry, if I may, I have a question. I'm not on the committee. Just a quick question with regard to training.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Shalaby.
What is the plan for that once these are obtained in terms of, will it just be the supervisors and then they train the employees, or will everyone on staff be obligated to learn how to use these?
We will have a training by the contractor in conjunction with the manufacturer for lead staff, particularly those staff that work in special recreation locations. First and foremost, all of those staff will be trained. And then area managers and supervisors as well will be trained at all of these buildings. Eventually, because people change jobs, their locations for work over the course of their careers with the Park District, train as many people as possible. What my plan is at this point is to work with the manufacturer and the contractor to provide the initial training. Then they will also train some key personnel within the district in conjunction with my department, who will become the trainers for other staff. And I'll also, and I haven't talked to the superintendent about this, but it would be my suggestion that we also work with Colleen Gallagher, who has been recently appointed the point person for medical related issues and accommodations that we make for people with disabilities. So I think this could be an appropriate adjunctory role for her to be involved with myself and my staff, and also special recreation staff. Those folks are very helpful as a matter of course in spreading the word unfortunately, throughout the district to other personnel.
Thank you.
I move to approve.
Second.
If no objection, we will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
That concludes the Committee on Administration. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee on Administration is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, July 11, 2012, at 10:47 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of Programs and Recreation of the Chicago Park District is being held on the 8th floor of this administration building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Vice Chair Commissioner Hanlon?
Here.
Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Trobert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Lavelle, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1 from the General Counsel, authorization to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Chicago Federation of Musicians, Local 10-208, AF of M. Becca Ryerson will address us.
Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners, General Superintendent, General Counsel. I'm Becca Ryerson, Deputy General Counsel for the Chicago Park District, and I'm here to present 2 board letters regarding the Chicago Park District entering into collective bargaining agreements with the CF of M and AGMA, which are the 2 groups who represent our performers at the Grant Park Music Festival. Before I begin with the letters, I'd like to introduce Paul Winberg. He's the new Executive Director for the Grant Park Music Festival, and he'd like to say a few words to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Just very briefly, I wanted to take a moment to thank Superintendent Kelly, President Traubert, also Steve Hughes and Becca Ryerson for their help in setting the parameters for the agreements that you're going to hear more about shortly. Most of you probably already know that the festival is 78 years old this year, so I think pretty much as old as the Park District itself. And we've had a long and very beneficial relationship with the Park District over the last 78 years. Last year, about 340,000 people attended our concerts, rehearsals, and community engagement activities. And this year, we are already in our 5th week of the season, and because of the drier weather, I think we've seen pretty outstanding attendance as well. This year, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Grant Park Chorus. They were founded in 1962, and in the packet that I just handed out, one of the things that we did this year to commemorate that 50th anniversary was the recording and release of a CD that features the Grant Park Chorus, which is actually probably one of the finest choruses in the nation, if not in the world. Another highlight that we have this year is our Classical Campers program. We work very closely with the Chicago Park District Summer Camp program, and this year 2,000 students from throughout the Chicago area will be participating in this Classical Campers program, which is a day-long immersion program where students are brought to the Grant Park Music Festival. They interact with musicians, they interact with our guest conductors, with our soloists. They spend time learning about basic musical concepts, and they are also provided with free busing and lunch. And we're very proud of this program. And last year was the actual 2nd year of the pilot program. We served about 500 students. This year it will be over 2,200. So it's quite a successful program for us. I hope to see all of you, if you haven't had a chance to come out to one of our concerts. I'd love to see you there. You can contact me directly if you'd like a seat, to just reserve a seat. However, the program is free and open to the public. The lawn is free, and we have 2,000 seats in the seating bowl that are free. on a first come first served basis. So I hope to see you all out there, and Becca now is going to talk a little bit about the parameters of the agreements with the chorus and with the orchestra. Thank you.
It's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the general superintendent or his designee to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Chicago Federation of Musicians, Local 10208 AF of M. The Chicago Federation of Musicians represents the orchestra members who perform in the Chicago Park District Grant Park Music Festival. The collective bargaining agreement between the Chicago Park District and the CF of M will have a 3-year term. Pursuant to negotiations, the Chicago Park District will increase the health and welfare benefits of the orchestra members by $4 per week in the first year of the agreement. The district will increase salaries as follows: 1.5% in 2012, 1% in 2013, and 1% in 2014. The experience increment in the agreement, which was decreased in 2009, will increase this year by $3,500. The experience increment is an amount that's distributed throughout the orchestra for the 10-week season based on seniority. In addition, the audition committee for the orchestra will receive a $2 per hour increase for their time spent in auditions for new orchestra members. Because this is the first season with our new executive director, the Chicago Park District has agreed not to pursue any terminations of orchestra members under Articles 11 or 12 for this year only. Articles 11 and 12 relate to the termination of an orchestra member for diminishing music ability. The district will still retain its right to terminate an orchestra member for cause. In addition to the agreement reached between the union and the Chicago Park District, the Grant Park Orchestral Association, the GPOA, has agreed to pay for orchestra member parking, to fund additional rehearsal services in 2013 and 2014, pay for travel expenses up to $13 a day for the audition committee, and to contribute an additional 1% wage increase for 2014. In the event the operation of the Grant Park Music Festival is transferred to the GPOA during the life of this agreement, the union has agreed that the collective bargaining agreement between the Chicago Park District and the CFM can be assigned to the GPOA. The Chicago Park District made a number of language changes in the agreement to reflect the new organizational structure of the festival. Where we once had one person who served as artistic and general director, Jim Palermo, of the orchestra, those roles are now split. We have an executive director, who you met, Paul Wimberg, who handles the management and administration of the festival, and our current orchestra conductor, Carlos Kalmar, is the artistic director. The language changes we made clarify what authority and responsibilities rest with each. Further, the union has agreed to allow free filming of the orchestra for B-roll footage, which is film that the district can distribute to television stations and use on the district and festival websites for promotional purposes. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have, and I know Paul would be willing to speak more if necessary about the orchestra agreement.
Becky, if we're just trying to understand what we have agreed to in this contract as opposed to what existed before, and we need to, we had some tough discussions, and we certainly appreciate the relationship we have, and we wanted to hold the line on this. And the percentage that you report is a 1.5, 1, and 1. Is that correct for the 3 years of contract?
Right.
But what else? The other things that you mentioned, the other amounts, comparing what we agreed to now compared to what we had before, what are the differences there?
Well, we did make an increase in the health and welfare payments and also the experience increment. At the time the last collective bargaining agreement was negotiated, obviously we were in a different budget situation. Not that things are fabulous now, but we were in a much worse situation then. And the orchestra members took a number of concessions in that agreement in line with what other Chicago Park District employees did by taking the 8 unpaid furlough days and things of that nature. So they had a fairly lean contract from 2009 to reflect the budget situation that existed at the time. So this year, the total increase over the 3 years of this agreement comes out to about $58,000, which keeps us in line with our budgeted amounts.
Okay, so that's the dollar amount of total increase.
Mm-hmm. and not just the percentage increase, but the experience increment, health and welfare, everything combined comes out to about $58,000.
Okay, and then you also mentioned the transferability of this contract, and that would just mean that in the event that the Grant Park Orchestral Association is at a point to take on the contract themselves, that is in place, that we could make that transfer if they were ever administratively at a position to do that.
Exactly. GPOA would take the place of the Chicago Park District in the collective bargaining agreement, and they would be responsible for everything that was negotiated there.
And just one more question. I think it's we all want this to be relevant, and you're hard pressed to go down there on a summer night and see it crowded and see people there, not think that it isn't relevant, at least for those people there. But is there some effort beyond the outreach and getting people there, anything at all to push this out into the neighborhoods, into the neighborhood parks, any way to get the music out in neighborhood parks?
Well, that actually does occur, and you can probably speak better about
it probably, right now, the program that I talked about earlier, which is the Classical Campers program, which is actually bringing students from the neighborhoods into the Millennium Park and to our performances. As we look ahead, one of the primary agendas, I think, coming from the city is to find ways to really create relevant programs in the neighborhoods themselves. And as we look forward into the future, one of the things that the association is very committed to is that kind of programming. And as of yet, what that will look like, I don't know, but it's definitely something that's on the agenda.
Performances at some of the park locations too?
Historically, the festival has performed in places like the South Shore Cultural Center. They've also performed at the Garfield Park Conservatory. And they've also had choral performance in various churches around the Chicago area. But as a matter of course, and as a program that we would look at sustaining over time, that's not something that we have in place.
Okay, and we've talked about this, but obviously this is funded by the Chicago Park District.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go out into parks and we talk to people about enjoy your park here, but also enjoy the lakefront and enjoy your symphony orchestra. We hope that we'll have a partnership and take lessons from other festivals, the Gospel Festival that has pushed out, and that we'll see more of that as we go on.
Absolutely, and we see that as a priority as well.
I mean, it's definitely something we list as an asset and an investment with all our cultural discussions as Michelle Boone and DCASE are going throughout the city. Your organization is vital. It is a big investment for us, and Brian and I don't want it to be a secret. We absolutely, and no one on the board does. We had a lot of discussion on it. We want this. I'm promoting it. I want everyone to promote this and get it out into all throughout the city. But I do commend both of you. This was completely negotiated in-house as well. There were no outside legal fees on this, and what never was said in this, anytime, all of you know, when you negotiate with unions, you have tough days, and not every conversation is pleasant. I think it was a great deal for the Park District. I think it was a respectful deal for the union members, and it was a good step forward for us. So thank you.
And I would echo that as well. And just to your point about getting the word out, I did put in your packet just a web version of an article that appeared in the Chicago Tribune just this week by one of their staff writers, Ron Grossman. But it looks more impressive in the paper itself. It's like a big, big article which really covers the history of the festival and what it does for the city of Chicago.
Would have killed Ron Grossman to mention the Chicago Park District.
It's sort of buried kind of in there.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
But anyway, congratulations on getting this done, and we all agree. I mean, this is one of the greatest things about Chicago in the summertime is this festival.
Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate the continued support of the Chicago Park District and of the city itself. So thank you.
Great.
I have one question. I wanted to pose it. The transfer that's mentioned, is that something that's being actively worked on? Is that something that is in the plans, or?
Yes, actually, the Grant Park Orchestral Association and the Chicago Park District and the City of Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events are all three as entities working to try to find a way to transfer the majority of the administrative support for the festival to the Grant Park Orchestral Association. So what we're looking at is some sort of long-term agreement between the three entities, similar to what you might find with the Lincoln Park Zoo or maybe even the museum campuses, so that the structure would be similar in scope and in shape.
And it would be self-sustaining? Is that the vision?
I'm not really sure ultimately what the goal will be. I think we're going to continue to look for ongoing support from the Park District. It's been 78 years of an organization that has been structured around some sort of public or municipal support, so it would be difficult to duplicate that. But as the years go on, there's more private, individual, private, and corporate support sustaining the organization. So, for example, this year we have almost a $5 million budget, of which half is now coming from the Park District. The other half is coming from corporate entities, individual supporters, and so on, and foundation support.
So this would be a 501c3?
The Grant Park Orchestral Association is a 501c3 organization, yes.
Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We please have a roll call?
Yes, sir. For item number 1, authorization to enter into collective bargaining agreement with Chicago Federation of Musicians Local 10208 AF of M. Chair Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Vice Chair Commissioner Hanlon?
Aye.
Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Roberts?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
The next item, item 2, from the General Counsel, authorization to enter into collective bargaining agreement with the American Musical Guild, Inc. Becca will address us again, and I think we've covered that, I think, in the last session, but if you could please give us a brief background on this.
Okay, the terms of the chorus agreement are a little bit different from the orchestra, so it probably bears going through the letter in detail, if you don't mind. It's recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the American Guild of Musical Artists, Incorporated. The American Guild of Musical Artists, Incorporated represents the chorus members who perform in the Chicago Park District Grant Park Music Festival. The collective bargaining agreement between the Chicago Park District and AGMA will have a 3-year term. Pursuant to negotiations, the Chicago Park District will increase the chorus member salaries as follows: 1.5% in 2012, 1% in 2013, and 1% in 2014. In addition, the rate of pay for mandatory piano rehearsals will increase by $4.50 in 2012 and an additional 50 cents in 2014. The district has agreed to include a second probationary season for tenured chorus members who perform poorly at their auditions. This allows tenured members additional training and practice for another season to help retain their position with the chorus. The district has also agreed to designate daytime rehearsals as orchestra rehearsals beginning in 2013 and increase the number of music stands available during chorus rehearsals by 10 over the course of the agreement. In addition to the financial agreement reached between the union and the Chicago Park District, the GPOA has agreed to pay for chorus member parking and fund an additional 1% wage increase for 2014. In the event the operation of the Grant Park Music Festival is transferred to the GPOA during the life of the agreement, the union has agreed that the CBA can be transferred to the Grant Park Orchestral Association. The union has agreed to incorporate a recording agreement into the contract and to allow free filming of the chorus for B-roll footage, which, as I stated before, allows us to promote the festival without additional cost to the district. In addition, the union agreed to allow the chorus to be paid at the same rate as the orchestra for performance broadcasts, which is lower than their regular broadcast rate when these performances are done in collaboration with the orchestra. Lastly, a monetary bonus for the chorus members who do not utilize any of their paid sick days during the season that was included in the previous agreement will be removed in 2013.
Questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 3 from the First Deputy General Counsel, request to name Margate Playground located in Lincoln Park in honor of Bill Hirsch. Elizabeth Granados Perez will address us. Liz?
Good morning, Commissioners, President Traubert, General Superintendent, and General Counsel. Elizabeth Perez, Deputy Director of Legislative and Community Affairs. It is recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to officially name Margate Playground in Lincoln Park as the Bill Hirsch Playground. The playground in Lincoln Park is located just east of the field house at 4921 North Marine Drive in the 48th Ward. The notice period of 45 days soliciting public input regarding the naming proposal was initiated on May 14, 2012. Notices were posted in parks and sent to advisory councils located within a 1-mile radius of the park site. Elected officials were also notified of the proposal, including the alderman. Numerous community members and organizations have provided strong support for the proposed name, including the Margate Park Advisory Council and the Carmen Winona Block Club. Alderman Harry Osterman also supports this proposal. In summary, Mr. Hirsch was a community activist and an active member of the Margate Park Advisory Council for over 25 years, serving as treasurer for most of those years. He supported and assisted in park programming and conducted fundraising efforts to support the participation of underprivileged children in these activities. A more detailed description of his accomplishments is found in your board letter. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Liz. Questions? If not, I would move to approve the item.
Second.
If there's no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 4 from the First Deputy General Counsel, request to initiate a 45-day notice period to name the Fernwood Park outdoor basketball courts in honor of Mac Irvin. Again, Liz Granados Perez, please.
Good morning again. It is recommended that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to initiate a 45-day notice period to solicit public input to name a feature in Fernwood Park. Fernwood is located at 10436 South Wallace Street in Chicago's Roseland community in the 34th Ward. The feature is the basketball courts, which are located north of the ball fields and west of the field house, and the proposed name is the McGluther Mac Irving Basketball Courts. Mr. Irving was an individual who made great contributions to the nation, to Chicago, the South Side, and Fernwood Park. He grew up in Chicago and played basketball in Tilden High School. He went on to become a longtime executive at Xerox. Mr. Irving devoted over 30 years of his life to providing high-quality basketball programs to Chicago youth. He turned a South Side basketball program into the Mac Irving Fire, a Nike-sponsored team which is widely considered one of the nation's premier club programs. He was among the first coaches to take Chicago players around the country to compete. He also created the Mac Irving Foundation, which helps at-risk youth. Mr. Irving was nicknamed the Godfather of Chicago high school basketball. He mentored 2 generations of basketball players, dozens of whom went on to play professionally, including Antoine Walker, Melvin Ely, and Jawan Howard. Representatives of Chicago's Southside community suggested naming the basketball courts at Fernwood Park to recognize his contributions to youth basketball in the community. Alderman Austin is also in support of this proposal. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions? If none, I would move to approve the item.
Second.
If there's no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this one.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
And that concludes the Committee on Programs and Recreation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned. Thank you.
On this day, Wednesday, July 11th, 2012, at 11:10 a.m., a meeting of the Committee on Capital Improvements. The Board of Commissioners of Chicago Park District is being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair Commissioner Kodak. Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado.
Here.
Commissioner Shalaby.
Here.
Commissioner Lavelle.
Here.
President Traubert.
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect That Commissioner Hanlon, Vice President Armstrong, General Superintendent Michael Kelly, and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. Item number 1 from the Director of Planning, Construction, and Facilities, authorization to enter into a contract award for artificial turf at Livingston Park, Park 510. Rob Raymond will address the Commissioners.
Thank you. Good morning. Rob Raymond, Director of Planning and Construction and Facilities. I'm going to pull up this presentation here as soon as we get the password entered and we timed out. But again, I've got one item for you this morning, but it's a really good one. It's an artificial turf athletic field and park development at 2139 Lexington. Okay. This is a 2-acre park in the 25th Ward in the Near West community. This project, I want to mention right off the bat, this project is paid for entirely by TIF funds, allocated by the City Council as an endorsement of the great work that Bob Mazukowski's Near West Little League is doing at this location. Bob Mazukowski is here to tell you more about the program if you have any questions, but first I'll just briefly describe the project and formally request authorization for the project. This is an aerial of the existing site. Here we have heavily used natural turf field to the east and a passive area to the west divided by Levitt Street. And this is a rendering of the new park. The work includes closure of a section of South Levitt to unify the two park areas, creation of a new artificial turf athletic field for soccer and baseball, including fencing and backstops, a new passive park area with bocce ball court, concrete walkways, stadium and pathway lighting, benches, drinking fountain, ornamental iron fencing, and other landscape improvements. So I'd like to recommend that an order be entered authorizing the General Superintendent or his designee to enter into a contract with Key Construction LLC for Park 510 Livingston Field development. The construction is to be substantially completed within 100 calendar days from issuance of notice to proceed for a finish date in early November. The contract amount is not to exceed $1,573,870. We have 25% minority-owned participation and 25% owned women-owned participation. Key is actually a WBE firm. 6 bids were received. Key was the lowest bidder. They're a relatively new firm for a project this size for us, so we called them in to carefully review the bid, and they have a clear understanding of the scope and we're comfortable making this recommendation. If you have no questions about the actual contract, I'd like to invite Bob to come up and say a few words about Near West.
Commissioners, while Bob's walking to the mic, I just want to set the sort of history for anyone who's new to this project. The Park District was leasing this land from the Illinois Medical District for a very long time, and Bob's Near West Little League was actually out there even prior to that, fighting the good fight when no one else cared, quite frankly, about this. Some of the pictures that don't do it justice is, there's still a vast amount of unused vacant land in this area, and what's really occurred through a lot of effort with both Mayor Daley's administration and Mayor Emanuel's administration is converting this into a new park officially, and really a bit of an oasis on the west side with that, Bob.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Brian. We've been, the league started in Cabrini Green in '91. The field is now $500,000 condos. So for the 2 bedrooms. But so we moved it to the west side, Alkill Park and Livingston Park. Biggest urban Little League in Chicago, 90% low-income minority kids. A lot of great mentoring, probably one of the better, we think the best private-public thing, because we're volunteers. If you had to pay our volunteers, it'd be millions of dollars. So our volunteers have done everything from just coach boys to legally adopting. One of my friends, Paul O'Connor, adopted 4 of the kids who were tough situations at home, and one just graduated University of Chicago. So just one little vignette. So the program, this enables us to go soccer too. Don't tell anybody they're about 92 yards. But even Dewey can't eyeball that. But so we'll be able to play soccer, football. Right now we just beat that thing to death. We put on the ground sprinklers in it a few years ago, and it's deep brown. So we're excited. Right now we're playing a lot of our games at Sheridan, some at Alco, but that just got taken over. So we really love it if you would approve this project, and the TIF money just makes it a blessing. But it's been 22 years in the works, and really a reward for the volunteers. So thank you, everybody.
Great.
First of all, thank you for what you do. And any more questions?
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Yeah, we should probably also recognize last month we were here with Altgeld, and that was a great partnership again with Take the Field, Bob Muzikowski making artificial turf field possible there as well. So thanks for that one as well, Bob.
Rob, before we vote, can you just, because we hear sometimes, you're the Chicago Park District and you should be all about green. And here you are replacing green, although I know there's not that much green out here, with artificial turf field. And we know we don't play tennis in the Chicago Park District on grass, and we don't play basketball on grass. But typically you do play baseball and soccer on grass. So why is this a good idea?
I think here where we have so much use, again, an incredibly active field, it would be down so often due to the heavy use conditions and oftentimes bad weather. We get extended seasons with artificial turf. And for us, we notice that when we install artificial turfs, and through the Take the Field initiative too, not only are we getting a tremendous amount of play in extended seasons, all the way even into wintertime now, the way winter's been in Chicago, it's also relieving the natural turf fields in other areas because people aren't playing them in bad weather. So we're getting better maintained natural turfs throughout the district, in addition to more playable artificial turfs in the district. It's really good for parks in general, and I think again in this condition and with such heavy use, it's a great project.
So very important project to me, as you know. I got a lot of history on this too. Put you on the spot. When's this going to be done?
The contract period is to be done in early November. We tightened the schedule for this one.
Good.
And talked to the contractor about holding that schedule.
So this year.
I was hoping to make it this year. So
all right. So
November.
All right. I got you to say it on the record. So.
Okay.
And Rob, the WBMB totals up to 50% on this?
It's 25M and 25W. Yeah. Yep.
I move adoption.
The second.
Okay.
I'll take a roll call.
Yep.
Vice Chair Commissioner Salgado,
Aye.
Commissioner Shalaby,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavelle,
Aye.
President Trauber.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Item number 2 from the Director of Natural Resources, authorization to enter into a contract for landscape maintenance services for Women's, Bartolome, and Future Parks. Adam
Morning.
Schwerner will address
Adam
Commissioners.
Schwerner, I'm the Director for the Department of Natural Resources. I thought before entering into that conversation related to the maintenance contract for those two parks, I would first go through a quick overview of how the Department of Natural Resources, the procedure by which DNR comes to a recommendation for its contracts, if I could have a moment of your time to discuss that. Thank you. So we work with the purchasing department to procure all of our contracts, and we follow the same procedures that are in place for contracts throughout the Park District. And we work with the Department of Natural Resources works with the purchasing department to decide whether or not we want to pursue an IFB or an RFP. An IFP, an invitation for bid, is oftentimes specifically for commodity, while an RFP is essentially an IFB versus an RFP is guided by the code of the CPD Chapter 11 of our code, and the RFP is chosen when the primary considerations for award are not solely based on price, and when oral discussions are necessary, and when quality and performance capacity are a factor. So an IFB would be we're going to get the lowest bid in most cases, while an RFP is going to be based on the quality of a potential contractor, the skill set of a potential contractor, previous work of a potential contractor, the capacity of that team of employees who are being brought by that potential contractor to the table to do the work that we have ahead of them. We're looking for the best price for the Park District and for the City of Chicago, and that requires oftentimes that we look at all of the specific capacities of a contractor. An RFP allows us to do that. We'll send out a bid, send out a contract on the street, a document on the street, constructed by our department, vetted by the Department of Purchasing. It goes on the street for 2 weeks to 4 weeks. We get responses back from contractors when those responses are deemed compliant and satisfy all the requirements within our contractual request. A committee is organized of 3 to 5 staff and outside experts. So an example of a previous contract review committee would include myself, Barb Wood, wherever she is now, the Deputy Director for the Department of Natural Resources, Ken, what's Ken's last name again? Ken Martin. Ken Martin at the City Department of Transportation, who oversees over 100 miles of landscape medians. Christine Nye from the Shedd Aquarium, and Mary Eisenbach from the Director of the Conservatory. So a pretty diverse group of people. Additional members of committees in other review committees included the number 2 guy in the landscape division at the Forest Preserve of Cook County, the number 1 guy managing all the contracts for the interior city contracts for landscape maintenance in the city of Chicago. We have a diverse group of people. We're looking for a lot of different opinions on these committees, and we're looking for people who have experience with with potential contractors, but also are unique and have not known these same contractors. The first mission of our committee is to actually review the written proposals. So we might get 3, we might get 10 proposals from various contractors, and the committee's responsibility is to review those responses. And we'll look at whether or not they responded to all of the issues within the RFP. We'll look at the skill set, we'll look at previous experience. As I said earlier, we're looking for integrity, expertise. We're not going to choose a contractor who can't do the work that we need to get done. Those paper proposals are then reviewed and graded according to a whole series of criteria as identified in the RFP. That review, that grading is done individually by each committee member, separate from any other committee member. So the paper grades are then given to the purchasing department, who brings all the grades together, compiles a list, and then we meet with a member of the purchasing department present for all meetings amongst the committee. There's always a purchasing department representative present. We'll discuss the proposals, we'll review our numbers. More often than not, I would say 95% of the time, our gradings measure up across the board. The number 1 is the number 1 for all 5, the number 2, etc. After we've done that, we then look at the price, the budget that the contractor has brought to the table. Now, the reality is we do that because price can be overwhelmingly influential. And we want to look at the contractor fairly. We want to look at what they're proposing, and after that we're going to also then look at the budget, and we're going to put a number value to that budget amongst all of the other values. After that, the contractors that make the grade are then interviewed. We all sit together and we talk to the contractor and the team that they bring to the table, usually 5 to 8 people, related to their skill set. And that is very illuminating. We then rate the oral presentation. That then becomes the total grade for the entire process, and it is the highest graded contractor through that process that will receive the contract, that will be brought to the board for approval. It's a fair process. Actually, people who from outside the Park District who have participated in this process, both from the city and from the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, have been so enthusiastic about how well this process is run by the purchasing department that they are now bringing this process and incorporating it into their systems. So I bring this to you because I brought a whole series of landscape contracts before you within the last series of months, and I thought it'd be a good way before this very small contract to discuss the points by which we make our determinations. And at that, I'll ask if there are any questions.
So I understand the objective data point of price.
Yeah.
These other data points, how much objectivity is there and subjectivity?
The reality is if we were not wanting to be subjective at all, we'd do an IFP. RFPs are, if you're going to do a roof, if I replace my roof, I got 3 bids. The lowest bidder, I checked the references, and roofs that he had done 2 years before were now leaking. I found out that his staff were not long-term and that he had to rent all of his equipment. He was not really the best value for my dollar. I chose the number 2 guy. Did a good job. So similarly, when we're looking to procure contractors who are going to work in our high-profile locations across the city, so we're talking Grant Park, we're talking Museum Campus, we're talking about some smaller parks today, but these are parks that need to look good all the time. And we're going to look for a group of people that can do this well and provide the best value for our dollar.
And then, so, I'm glad you're talking about this, because there was an item in the press I thought that questioned our process here, and it's easy to say you don't always pick the low bidder, and you would be the first to say you don't always pick the low bidder.
Absolutely.
But
RFPs and the code allow us to do that.
But your committee always has an outside component to it?
There is always someone from outside the Department of Natural Resources. There might be some other staff member from either the budget department or the design department, the planning department, or the capital department. There's always someone from outside. Bob Rollo, who's a staff member who manages lakefront operations, was a member of a number of committees and was very new to this, and was he learned a great deal, and it was very useful to have him on the committee. But again, I want to get back to what I said initially. Everyone has their own set of grades that they produce prior to meeting together. There's no way for any one member to inappropriately influence the outcome of this. It's done well. There's a person from product purchasing at every meeting.
I have a question, Adam.
Yes.
In the scenario you just gave, then, that lowest bidder, would they then be removed from any future opportunities to bid, or how's that going to
Well,
work?
first of all, I want to just be clear. RFPs get bids. Don't get bids. They get responses, while IFBs get bids. So we get proposals to RFPs, and we get bids to IFBs. So that's a clarification that Rafi keeps hitting me over the head to make sure I make. So in the answer to your question is, people change. Firms grow. Firms change members. Firms have additional experiences. One of the great things in the Department of Natural Resources, we've actually worked with general and prime landscape contractors to work with M&WB firms to bring them to the point where they're strong. We have 2 landscape companies that do a lot of work, including today's contractual option, which is Christie Weber, and also Cityscape. Both were brought up through Park District work over many years. So they became primes on their own through learning through many years of experience as a sub to many of our general contractors. And they would have not been considered initially for such work, and now are considered for such work and repeatedly can apply and do get reviewed.
I think the article, addressed some of these points, that if they're eligible and qualified, why not go with the lowest bidder? And if not, an explanation such as that you've given us is important to justify it, right. To show clarity and transparency. And I don't feel that any of the questions are unreasonable, in light of the fact that we've deemed them to be qualified and we're not going with the lowest bidder.
I would agree, and quite frankly, when that interview occurred with that writer, I did say these very same things. Funny how that works. Occasionally that works to our advantage, and occasionally it doesn't.
I move adoption.
Well, I haven't yet spoken to the matter at hand. I just was doing a preamble, which was a very lengthy one, and I appreciate you giving me the time. So the contractual contract I'd like to bring to the board today is simply a contract for the, yes, please. So what I've done is produced a map that shows where the 2 parks we're discussing are located within the city, and then the 2 actual parks. It's there are essentially 2.5 acres per park. It's Bartlemy Park, which is on the near west side, and Women's Park, Chicago Women's Park, which is on the near south side. They're both about 2.5 acres. As the Department of Natural Resources acquires new land that has a great deal of landscape maintenance requirements, such as these 2 parks do, we'll look to get those under contract. And so it is recommended that the General Superintendent or his designee enter into a contract with Christie Weber Incorporated for the maintenance of Bartlemy, Women's Park, and associated new parks that come on board. And it's a 2-year contract with a value of $180,000 with 3 one-year extension options potentially available depending upon the budget. So that's a very simple contractual request, and I ask that you approve it.
And were they the low bidder?
They, in this case, were the low bidder, and it's Christy Weber, and she brought a very good team to the table, and we're indeed the lower cost.
And these are new parks?
The Bartlemy Park was built by the Planning and Construction Division, probably opened 2 years ago, and it was under a 1-year maintenance contract last year through our landscape pool, and now we're putting it into a 5-year contract. And while Women's Park we got from the city, it's a long-term park. It's been there for many, many years. It actually has the oldest house in the city within the park. And we took that on probably 2 years ago also. That was also under a 1-year contract, and now this will be a longer contract. One of the reasons why we're bringing a lot of these longer-term contracts before you is that the economy right now is such that we're getting really nice pricing. And we're going to lock people in for the 2-year period with 3 1-year extension options. We think that's the best value for the Park District.
Any other questions?
I would move to accept.
Second.
If no objection, we'll apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Can I have 1 second for one other piece of information, Mr. President?
Yes.
You actually asked me to talk about this yesterday. So we are in a drought, and I just wanted to inform the board about what that means for the Chicago Park District. Obviously, we have 6,000 acres of turf that is brown. That's normal. Grass goes dormant. It is evolved to go dormant during the dry season. That's okay. It'll come back. While the trees, we're very concerned about. The younger trees between 1 and 10 years old, we're very concerned about. You'll see driving around, a lot of those are losing their leaves. It's the fall has hit us. That's bad. And so we're now transitioning all of our mowing staff, or the majority of that staff, to watering of trees. So we bought thousands of the bags that you stick on the trees and fill with water, and we bought additional pumps and hosing and all that stuff. And so I just bring this to your attention so that you can talk about this if anyone asks. Also, we're not idiots. We're not just letting the trees die. We know that we need to save them. But we got 10,000 trees that we would need to water, and we'll not be able to do that. So, and if you're asked, and if you would spread the word, what we need is for people to take a hose out, put it at the base of the tree, let it dribble for an hour or two, 1 or 2 times a week. And it's particularly the smaller trees, that scale, and smaller in caliber, that we need you to pay attention to.
But you're not asking the public to water our trees.
I would ask anyone to water our trees.
If they will.
If they will. If there's a Park District site and there's a residence close by and a hose can be snaked through our fence, more power to them. More power to them.
So, Adam, the warranty on trees that were planted this spring or early summer that are really taking a beating, how long is that warranty, and you're going to be on top of it?
So, as I was saying earlier, we were getting very good pricing. So, the last one of the contracts I brought in the winter was for our district-wide tree planting contract, and we went from a 1-year warranty to a 2-year warranty with less cost per tree. So, the newly planted trees this spring and summer have a 2-year warranty requirement where our contractor is required to either keep them alive or replace them at the end of the warranty period.
But Adam, how are we making the public aware of the need to do what they can to help maintain these trees?
I worked with Zvez Kubat of our marketing press office yesterday. We did a piece on our TV channel, and she's going to have a piece on our Facebook site of me talking about this. Mike, I think also we're going to probably try to talk to others in the city to try to get the message out more broadly.
We're really urging the city to do a little bit more of a global message, because it's not just our trees, it's the city's trees.
It's almost like this is a WBEZ story.
Right.
I think, quite frankly, we're going to lose thousands of trees if we're not careful.
No, we need
I think Irma's volunteering. Right. No, seriously, right.
I have a question, Adam, before Irma speaks. Just please stand right there, Irma. In terms of the cause of the problem with it, is it the temperature or the length of the drought or both? And rain, the periodic rain that we're going to get, how does that affect all of this?
Last winter we had 4 snow events. The winter before we had 36. Precipitation in the winter significantly down. Early spring, very little rain. The rain we've had has been, the rain that we've had, you might think it's a deluge and hey, that's really helpful, but quite frankly, it just isn't. There's a huge water deficit. It's the combination of the water deficit and the fact that it's incredibly hot, and the fact that we are seeing the results of global warming. And if you don't believe it, forgive me, but sorry. But I believe that this is a trend that we're going to continue seeing, and it's going to be a requirement that we're going to have to get on top of this. We're also choosing cultivars and tree species that can take this kind of abuse more effectively, but it's hard to keep a tree alive when it's bone dry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Irma.
Yes, sir. Sorry, we don't have anyone that signed up to speak.
You're okay?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
If anyone else would
Thank you for the opportunity. Irma Trander, Friends of the Parks. There was a drought, over 15 years ago, similarly, and there was a lot of outreach to community people who live across the street from parks. So I really encourage your communications department to try to get more visibility through television and radio any way you can. We will help in any way we can. As a matter of fact, we'll go back and put it on our webpage. I'm not sure, but I think I looked at the webpage a couple days ago and it wasn't, I'm not sure if it was put on there, but put it on your webpage. I mean, we really have to bombard people to do that. And in neighborhoods where people live right across the street, they have, if they know that and have hoses, they have done that in the past to come out. And it's real important, these new, I can just think of it. We planted trees with the Chicago Bears and Gateway Green in the Park District in June. Oh my God, Barbara. I'm so concerned about these beautiful, hefty trees that we planted. Those are the younger one. The younger they are, the more difficult it is to survive this kind of heat. So anyway, please call on Friends of the Parks. Please call on your advisory councils. Let's figure out a plan. But I mean, it's a not only is it expensive and a loss to lose these trees, and the aesthetics and what they do to keep things cool. But I mean, the emptiness if they're gone. I mean, you have these wonderful things, and then suddenly you lose 12 of them or something in an area, and it's just shocking, and it really affects the environment. So how can we help more than just communicating through Facebook and Twitter and our webpage? Advisory councils, maybe something we can do with communications to push this. It really is serious. Okay, I don't want to go into I'm sure President Traubert, you've seen and in your runs, it looks like fall. Yeah, I planted a grow for my brother a couple of years ago with the Park District, and one of these trees is starting. What do I do? It's really that significant a thing.
Thank you.
So let's work together on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Irma.
Okay, so this now concludes the Committee on Capital Improvements. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those against? Motion carried, and the Committee on Capital Improvements is now adjourned.
On this day, Wednesday, July 11th, 2012, at 11:40 a.m., a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Board of Commissioners being held in the 8th floor boardroom of the Administration Building located at 541 North Fairbanks. Will the Secretary please take a roll call?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Shalaby?
Here.
Commissioner Koldyke? Commissioner Hanlon?
Here.
Commissioner Lavelle?
Here.
Commissioner Salgado?
Here.
Vice President Armstrong?
Here.
President Traubert?
Here.
Quorum is present. Let the record reflect that General Superintendent Michael Kelly and General Counsel Maria Garcia are also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. At this time, the Committee of the Whole will consider various matters which are, pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, appropriately discussed in executive session. There will be a discussion of 2 settlements and a review of the executive session minutes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. The meeting is now in executive session. Is there a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Return to open session.
The Board of Commissioners met in executive session, discussed 2 settlements, review executive session minutes, and have the following matters of new business. There was a discussion of the settlement agreement with Anthony Dinkins versus the Chicago Park District in the amount of $185,000. Is there a motion to approve the settlement?
So moved.
Will the secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Shalaby?
Aye.
Commissioner Hanlon?
Aye.
Commissioner Lavelle?
Aye.
Commissioner Salgado?
Aye.
Vice President Armstrong?
Aye.
President Roberts?
Aye.
Motion carried, and the matter is adopted.
There was also a discussion of the settlement agreement of Hilda Miller versus the Chicago Park District in the amount of $500,000. Is there a motion to approve the settlement?
Second.
If no objection, will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried, and the matter is adopted.
Last, there was a review of the executive session minutes as is required by the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection 16F. The Board of Commissioners, per the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection FD, recommends the destruction of verbatim records for July 14th, 2010, September 15th, 2010, October 13th, 2010, December 11th, 2010. Is there a motion to approve the destruction?
Second.
If no objection, will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried, and the matter is adopted.
The Board of Commissioners, per the Code of the Chicago Park District, Chapter 2, Section A, subsection 16F2, also recommends the release of the following executive session minutes for public inspection. January 11th, 2012, February 8th, 2012, March 14th, 2012, April 11th, 2012, May 9th, 2012, June 13th, 2012. Is there a motion?
Second.
If no objection, will apply the last favorable roll call vote from the prior matter to this matter.
Motion carried, and the matter is adopted.
That concludes the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carried. The Committee of the Whole is now adjourned.